People can return promptly for 11:45. Thank you. Welcome back, people. Can I just do a quick straw poll? For people who have an estates background, could you give me a show of hands, please? Wow, that's pretty good. And then sort of customer services or AV or one of those. Yeah, fantastic. And then finally IT. Yeah, that's pretty good. So, you know, in terms of the estates and IT, it's looking fairly even. And then the rest of you, thanks for joining us. Right, so I'll pass you over to Antonio Barbosa for communication and cooperation between ICT and Estates.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. First, a small introduction. When I went to Imperial College, I was not working in this sort of area. I was doing consultancy and project management for all sorts of other type companies in other areas. They wanted someone at Imperial that would be able to communicate with our colleagues in the Estates Department because there was not much of that going on. Then they said, okay, you are going to have two roles. The first one as a bridge to the estates with the Estates Department, and the other one maintaining our infrastructure. I asked, how big is the infrastructure? Not big, about 29 sites, 100,000 network points, and we've got, at the moment, I don't know, roughly 2,000 switches and all sorts of other equipment all over the place. So, okay, that's going to be interesting. So, communication and cooperation between ICT and Estates, that was something that was very hard. And it was very hard because there was no communication. They told me, you're going to have about 20 projects. Oh, probably a few less. I found out on my first 2 months about 120. I can't remember exactly the figure now. That was about 10 years ago. How, after finding those 120 projects, was I going to try and improve their delivery? Because I didn't know that we had new buildings coming online. We already spoke in the other presentations about this. We had new buildings coming online. We didn't know, or we only knew at last minute. Of course, the big projects we were semi-involved, but the smaller projects, we used to be called at the service desk and asked why weren't the computers connecting to the internet? God knows. Email, nothing. How could we change that? And changing that, how could we maintain it afterwards? Those were the three things that I had to look at as soon as I stepped in. I had to hit the floor running. Well, where do things go wrong in the beginning? ICT, we tend to talk in code. Well, Estates, what do we need to have to get these new people move into this office? That would be a very simple question. What do we say? Response would be, okay. Well, the straw poll already said about half of us here would have answered that at the end. And I would have to agree because I could relate to that. I understood that response, but I wouldn't imagine saying it. Computer says no. Estates, what do we need to have to get these new people moved to this office? Well, that's a very common answer as well. I had to, so many times I had to laugh at this one as well. It was incredible. But then again, we got the reversal. Project delivery, Estates. Well, we do need you to install your servers. to make our BMS security and people working. Well, actually, it's not servers, but then again, we'd be going back to the technical lingo, but we'd be saying, what are you talking about? Where? How? What? Give me some information. Well, we've got PTS here, so terribly sorry. What used to happen, we talked about design and build. States would go outside, get some consultants, draw something that would be very standard in the industry, do everything in isolation of the existing infrastructure, and expect it to just plug and play. Doesn't work like that. And the second, operational delivery. Okay, that's a good surprise. The same questions and the same problem. So these are the things that we spoke in our first presentations, and we talked about on the second one as well. What I thought was, well, we need to have a way to talk to each other. We need to have processes, we need standards, methodologies. But we need to do that with a buy-in of the people that can decide things as well. Because as much as I would like to do things as I wish to do in previous companies, I need people that are in a position of responsibility in terms of organizing the budgets, etc., in terms of how they are distributed according to the support departments, because we are support departments, both of us, ICT and Estates. And we spoke about the clients, which are the end users, the students. In our case, we've got a very big research base, which is actually one of our big income streams. I had to agree processes with them. But to do that, I had to be able to talk to Estates. And I need them to understand what I was talking about. So I need to make things simple. I had to agree with them. I had to walk to their desks. Say, hello, here I am. We need to talk about this. Process, standards, agree methodology again. We talked about REBA, Agile, Prince. We've had a very, very awful experience with Prince because we thought we were special. I'm Prince certified and I used Prince before, and it is a very good tool. Why? Because it's very flexible. From the smallest of the projects to the biggest one, we can tailor it. What we did, we say, oh no, Imperial College, we are special. Let's tweak. Well, it's a good thing that at least our colleagues from the Estates Department didn't tweak the REBA process or Agile or others, but we did try to tweak Prince. We had problems with having to relearn Prince, then to actually find people that would have to come from the outside to relearn it as well, instead of just grabbing a resource like you've done and say, okay, we're third party, we need you to help us, you are a resource for us, help us deliver something that the university wants. We couldn't do it. Again, I mentioned that we are service delivery groups. We have common interests, but I spoke about budgets now. It's a very important thing because the states, at the end of the day, manage the big budgets. It's true. Imperial College, we are doing about I was just talking about this. We're doing about 130 million to 150 million pounds a year worth of refurbishments and new builds, and we have committed ourselves to a new campus, which will be approximately £3 billion investment for the coming years. In the States, and the capital projects manage those. And if you go back to the previous slides, what, where, how. We can't have that. So we need to be able to talk again. And I emphasize this. Talk, talk, communicate. Well, we also talked about ICT being part of a state or being a separate entity. This is the problem. We had electricians doing cabling, data cabling. We had electricians changing data cabling in lifts. Think that could daisy chain. No, it's just electricity, just a signal. And people got stuck in lifts, for example, and they couldn't call anyone because they were stuck there and the phones wouldn't work. That's not the best way to operate. And this was what we had about 10 years ago when I joined Imperial. Estates would not try to install the BMS in isolation of everything else. Why should we? Oh, we had these third-party consultants that did an entire building. And you just need to plug it somewhere to your thingy-majiggy. It doesn't work like that. Installation of electrical or other services. Same thing, but this is to do with safe work environment. We talked about, and we saw photographs of very poor comms rooms and underneath the staircase. Do you expect an electrician to work or a plumber to work in a very poor environment? You try to do the best for them to be able to maintain. Sometimes it's not possible. We talked about buildings that are listed, and sometimes we can't do anything about them. But you try to do your best. Why would we put closets and use them as comm rooms? No idea. Try to carry the switches into those racks and try to handle them. It doesn't work as well. And how do we move on? How do we move forward? Evolution or revolution? Well, this is very logical. If we actually agree on what we are about to do, as Exeter did, then there's no problem. Actually, it was ICT said, oh, we need help. Something is not going well. And they were quite lucky to have someone that could help them. But then again, we may not. It seemed a little bit drastic. But unfortunately, that's what we had at Imperial. It was not very drastic, as it may seem, but I will share with you a little bit of our experience. Clarification of boundaries. Again, we don't want to be inside of estates don't want to be inside of ICT. You don't understand our servers, hubs, and again, jiggy-majiggies, as we sometimes don't understand what you're talking about. Even though I do spend a lot of time in engineering team meetings, listening about, well, I don't know what is this fascination about toilets, but anyway, also air handling units, etc., etc. So I do spend a long time listening and understanding what is being talked about. Also because I need to understand the fabric of the buildings in common as well. I'm not going to allow people to put cabling routes, for example, in places where I cannot reach. Architectural design, I love it. But if it's not something that we can use, forget about it. Why are we going to have plasterboard ceilings if you cannot access our services? It doesn't work. If you want to do that, you'll have to put at least access hatches and some that we can actually use. Shoulder, head. Oh, but that doesn't look good. So shall we put removable ceilings then? Maintain forums of understanding and communication channels. Okay. We have several forums. I'm a member of what we call the TAG, Technical Advisory Group. It's chaired by our Director of Estates and Real Estate. We have all of the project managers coming in at specific time and days to present their projects. They need to do so at specific times according to the REBA stages as well. We sign off or we accept what they are proposing us or not. I attend to, as I said before, the engineering review meetings, and I make these sort of comments as I did before about the cable routes, about the size of the comms rooms, about many other things. And I do that despite having standards. Before I mentioned the standards, and they are online, they are publicly available. Anyone and everyone from this room can go to our website and actually read them, because I came from a consulting background and I said, I don't want to catch you out. I just want to have something that works. So please read. Then it took me 2 years of staying over from the day-to-day and the firefighting to actually rewrite the standards, because I wanted them to be simple. I wanted them to be effective, and I wanted them to be used. So I broke them down. My first document in those standards is about 7 pages and has diagrams. It takes about 5 minutes to read. It's what I call the project manager instruction. Anyone can read that and understand the basic concept. That's fine. But then we have the builders, the main contractors that come in. They need to know how to build a comms room. They just need to take an appendix that says, oh, this is how you build a comms room. And we've got the QAs, the cost consultants, because the questions that I saw before from estates to ICT was, what do I need for delivery of this project? Or put these people into a specific space. They want to know price, timescales. They want to know what is the impact to the project and what is the impact to the organization. And we talk in jargon. But in this particular instance, what I want them to see is how, for example, coming from a GIA to the smallest detail can be all found with formulas. It's just maths. For budgeting purposes, is more than enough. For delivery, of course not. It will have to be revisited during the project lifetime. But that's the same thing with everything else. But they don't even need to come to me to actually ask what do they need, because they can actually see GIA, this much. I actually created, it's not perfect, but an Excel spreadsheet where they can just need to put GIA, and I've got most of the questions answered. Well, why do we pay QAs? But they actually do their job and do their job well. Very, very standard things. Now the revolution. I mentioned that we went through a bit of a revolution there. Again, clarification of the boundaries. Create forms of understanding. It's the same thing. What is different then? What is different between the two? It's just there is an acceptance on the first one that there isn't on the second. There is a forced breakdown. How did I do that? I took upon myself to say no. We don't say no. We don't say no because we have end users, we have clients, we have a business to provide and continue. How come are we going to say no? People are going to start screaming at us. Actually, no. It can't be, because we cannot maintain. We need to be sure that what we're going to get from a project is going to be good for the organization in the years to come. If it's not, we're going to start throwing bad money after the installation. Good money after bad money, sorry, after the installation. And it can't continue. It is my duty to protect my organization. And because I want to protect the organization, I said, no, guys, you're going to have a problem. You are not going to have ICT services in. And then I forced the communication. I made myself an issue on the project, because then people that would not talk to me before came to talk to me. 3 days before a £40 million new building was to come online, I had the director of the department that was going to use the building in my office asking me when we're going to put the IT services in. And I said, you are not. You have to talk to the project, because I need a lot of things. At that point, I already knew that things were going to fail, because I had seen them fail during the project. What can I do? I cannot maintain it. If I'm going to maintain it, and if it's going to go wrong, as I know it will, you are going to come to my same office and you're going to say, you are incompetent, as a lot of times has happened. So I had to tell them, I can't. After some negotiation, we said, okay, beneficial occupation, no SLAs. I don't want this organization to suffer as well from day one. But I will not sign off on the project until the works are completed. I accepted that there would be problems in the beginning. We informed the end users. We rushed last minute to show that we could and we would cooperate with all of our colleagues. We delivered the service, and true enough, things didn't work. A lot of them. We had a lot of people complaining, calling the service desk, oh, my computer doesn't. We will rush, we will try. But at least at that point, the problems had been identified. We knew what was going to happen. And then we said, well, we now know what we have to do. This is just some information for you. A culture of estates, the second one, a culture of estates full control over the entire process. That's what we had. But luckily for me as well, some people took ownership. They were new people as well in the estates department. And they said, Antonio, would you like to have more people in your team just to cooperate with us? I said, I think I touched a nerve. They're moving. They're now engaging me. It's not just me going to their office and trying to talk. But I'm getting a feedback, because they're starting to understand the importance. Can you commission BMS without IT nowadays? Very difficult. Can you commission security? Very difficult. So I started with an offer for an extra person in my team. I said, thank you. We said, thank you, we accept. Do we have a space next to you for us to work? We had a desk in the estates department. We had someone that sat on that desk at least 2 days a week, sometimes more. Then, of course, as time goes past and we are squeezed, etc., and the relationship is improving, then there was no need. We never charged the extra person to estates. But that was a way for estates to tell us that they understood, they were willing, and they were committed to a relationship. But what we need to be careful. After all of this is done, we have commitment. We are using the standards. The estates department helped me write part of the standards. I had our electrical engineer writing the electrical and lighting information for our comms rooms. We had the mechanical engineer designing the mechanical services for our comms rooms. We had the security engineer designing the security. They were committed. They were part of. We had also the fire officer help us. And also, I wanted to, sorry, I'm backtracking a bit, but I also wanted to resolve one problem. We mentioned asbestos here, and we mentioned health and safety and others. Fire, very important. Whilst you can tap onto an electrical cable, you can tap onto a data cable. And we move many cables. We can put, nowadays, 480 cables in one single cabinet in our installations. It's different for other organizations, but 480 cables in one cabinet. You can have 2, 3, 4 cabinets in one conference room. Bunch of cables. And imagine the adds, moves and changes that change during the lifetime of that installation. Fire breaks, forget about it. We spent $500,000 in 2 buildings trying to recertify everything. And we know that this is not going to last. So we're now using even new equipment, cableways that are permanently placed in the walls, etc., so that people can use them and not damage everything. So we looked at all of this process, and it's on the standards. Every single time we see something that we can improve the standards, we have used them. We know that they work. But we found something that could improve them, we include them. We communicate back. Nobody complains, says anything. They are in effect. They work. But, as I was going to say, beware of routine. Past achievements, okay, I've achieved everything. I don't need to worry. No, that's not going to work. Because everything will lapse. Lapse as it was before, because we'll stop talking. We'll stop trying to innovate. We'll try to stop and understand what the new processes and the new demands. We talked about what our clients and the students wanted. How can we achieve that if we don't look at what's out there? We need to continue, improve, improve, improve. Never stop. Sometimes it's tiresome, but never, never stop. Very important, challenge your suppliers. Well, we saw furniture here that it was different. Why don't we have it done in a more regular basis? Also, our installers, are they doing what they should be doing for us? Our main contractors, our electricians, are they doing what they need to do for us? And then technology changes. It does that. We're still installing Cat 5e, but we're looking at Cat 6a. Do we want, probably in the future, I will just install it if the price is right. Challenge your staff and yourself and empower them. Use health and safety as a driver. Say, well, I'm not going to break my back trying to reach something and fall from a step ladder. I'll refuse it. I won't do it. Why should someone in my team do it? And that is my last part. I'm just at the end. Just about time enough for some questions. 1 or 2, I think, if there's any. Well, appears not.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Okay, if I can invite Jeremy.